focus both the gaps in information and areas such as community education and interpretation, where some of our big good protected areas are really struggling. So definitely a motivation for the staff and for the agency to lift the standards a little bit in there. One of the suggestions that I think is still floating around a bit with the concept is what happens when, I think Vinod was talking about things were registered for future consideration on the green list. I went to a meeting of some marine protected areas where people were talking about, do we need a white list or something? So for places that are on the way but still have to improve a couple of areas, and how we cope with those places as a way of encouraging them rather than making them feel like failures. I think that's absolutely critical.
Because that my major involvement with this has been the Conservation Assured Tiger Standards project. And there we very much want to encourage sites to register for the standards, to show that they're willing and intent to reach the standards, and then if they reach the good management standards, they'll actually be accredited as CAPS standards. But I think certainly from the tiger standards point of view, the Conservation Assured point of view, the whole point of doing the project is to improve management. Tiger numbers and other species that are in real danger are still dropping. Despite protected areas, despite all the efforts and money that's gone into management, we're still losing these species. And unless we act really quickly to improve management, we're going to start losing even more of our iconic species. So if we're failing with Conservation Assured to improve the management in protected areas, and there's wider management issues as well, but let's get the protected areas right first as we're in basic crisis mode. If we're not going to get that right through Conservation Assured, then what we do, might go and shoot ourselves in the head or something. We've really got Mike. Yeah, Mike's fired. So, thanks.
I would say yes, and a strong yes. In hearing what happened in the CATS initiative and in Colombia or in the other pilot cases that we have right now, the management right now is improving. Having standardized methodologies for assessment is part of improving the standards, or having better evidence of management and start documenting and disseminating the management, start to increase the quality, and having a positive feedback from the park rangers to really try to or demonstrate or try to improve or set up like some milestones about their own management. I think is a way to start really moving forward to have the quality that we want to really achieve from our protected areas around the globe.
So my answer is definitely yes. So I bring this initiative contains develop global standard on the sound management. So regardless the registering the green list or not, so this global standard or regional standard, national standard could guide the way for the better management of their own protected areas. So definitely yes.
Okay, thanks. Mark is going to ask a couple clicker questions. Okay, so you also now get to give us your view on whether or not the Green List initiative is likely to lead to the development and adoption of good standards. And the votes are coming in. 13, 15, 20. $43, looks like 44. Last 46. Okay, I think we've stabilised at 46. Let's have a look at the results. Okay, so that's pretty positive. I think overwhelmingly people see it as potentially advantageous. So you're in agreement with the panel. That's good. I think we've talked about that. Let's take one more, and then we'll have an opportunity for you to comment or add additional questions too. Okay, so this is a specific one in relation to the CAPS project. Whether or not setting and assessing good standards is actually going to help with the conservation of tigers. So it may measure the management of tiger protected areas, but will that translate into greater success in tiger conservation? Two people are having to think about this one a little bit more, not quite so quick to respond. Oh, some people at the front want to vote as well. We can give out some more. Yes, the panel can vote. Okay, 45. Last chance for votes, 46. Okay, let's have a look and see. All right, and that's again, I think, interesting. Just a shift towards the unsure category, and I guess that's understandable because we don't yet have a very good understanding of the relationship between standards of management and biodiversity outcomes, and that's one of the objectives of actually a workshop that's running parallel to this that I also should be at, which is looking at biodiversity outcomes in protected areas, where we have a joint WCPA SSC task force that's trying to look at that question. What are the things that impact on the biodiversity outcomes of protected areas? Okay, thanks. Back to David. A couple more questions after this.
Yeah, just a few more, but now we're getting into the actual operational part of how this works, and we wanted your ideas on the green list and the CATS proposals involve a system of assessment that involves an element of self-assessment, an external review, and determination by an independent reference groups of experts. Is this a model that is appropriate for this type of work? In other words, and I'll read it again. We're using a model that is a self-assessment model, and it's an external review by an independent reference group of experts. So let me throw that out to the panel, or if you can comment on that.
So I think the point of the green list and the CATS is that it's definitely a mixed approach. We start with self-assessment. Most of the management effectiveness systems that have been developed for use in protected areas are based around self-assessment. Some of them will have an expert review group that will maybe come and look at the results and help draw up some recommendations, but it always starts at a site level, and that's where we start with the green list as well. It starts at the site level. The idea with the green list is then to use the results of the management effectiveness evaluations, working with the site and a review panel to see if the standards of the green list are met. So then we add a layer of a review. I think that kind of review is useful, particularly for sites, because it brings in some external expertise sometimes and helps look at how you can fill the gaps in management. Many years ago, before I even started writing lots on protected areas, I wrote a lot on organic agriculture and worked on the standard setting in organic agriculture and also in the FSC, the forestry standards. And certainly in organic agriculture, when people went out to certify to look at the products, it was very much seen as a way of providing advice to the farmers on issues that they maybe weren't quite reaching the standards. And it was seen as a help, not a hindrance. And I very much hope that that's the way that this kind of assessment panel and external review for the green list and for CATS works, that this is helping people achieve the standards, not just judging them, but helping reach those standards.
Yeah, I think the combination of the two is absolutely essential. We had a lot of discussion when we were doing guidelines on management effectiveness about the pros and cons of external versus internal assessment, but this is combining the best of both. And certainly at an agency level, we weeded out anything that wasn't likely to pass before it went up to be proposed for the green list. So that fear that you put something up and then it gets rejected, I think it's unlikely to happen too much because it will be excluded during the process when you're doing the self-assessment anyway.
I think it's a good idea to have the reference group because we have an external view and more independent and that can complement even the evidence or can have more questions and meet even an additional standards to have others really analyzing what we as an agency can submit it for the global green list.
Just very, excuse me. And just very quickly, I think a business plan, a business model for the green list needs to really look at cost effectiveness as well, because it can't be something that demands a lot of resources to keep going.
Okay. And I'd like to ask the audience the same question. Again, I'm looking at, just to rephrase it again, the model that we're using is a self-assessment by external review and determination by an independent reference group of experts, reference group of experts. Any way that you want to modify that or whatever? Yes, sir.
Thanks, I'm Bill Jackson. I'm the Chief Executive of Parks Victoria. I think the great initiative that I'm going to challenge the panel back, particularly on the issue of independence and governance. And there's some of the things that I just jotted down. Agencies have staff that are WCPA members. Often we fund WCPA and we have office holders in WCPA. So I would imagine that my government's going to see there is a lack of independence in any certification process, or they will question the independence of the certification process if you're judge and jury at the same time. So just the views on how do you get that distance, particularly as WCPA is a voluntary network, and if you're expecting volunteers to do certification, then the alternative method is like marine or forest stewardship. They're quite big industries, and given our financial circumstances, I'm not sure most park agencies would be very happy to do management effectiveness assessments, but to pay for an independent certification would be quite a challenge for many. And subset of the question, and I just heard that word then, about not getting on the list, but if it's only for 5 years and you get off the list, the politics of taking a park off the list is going to be pretty challenging for everybody.
And I want to ask also, thanks Bill, that was good, pretty good. And also if you have any suggestions on 100%, yes.
Conversely, there's a motivation to get onto a list like that and to be assessed.
Sorry.
I believe that there's a motivation to get onto a list like that and to be assessed because it's an additional motivation for funding for protected area managers.
If I could just clarify one thing, Bill, the intent is not that sites would be taken off the list after 5 years, but that there would be a review process after 5 years to make sure that the standards are being maintained. So they would stay on unless there was a reason to take them off, not that they would have to go. So there would be a process that had to go through to essentially say, yes, we've got some evidence that we've maintained our standards over this period.
Any other comments on that last question? Yes.
I don't know if it's Trevor Sandwich. I'm not sure that, I don't know if in this discussion you've addressed some of the political challenges. One of those that comes if you go through the multilateral negotiations and you look at, say, the targets that are set in the strategic plan and so on, there's always a tendency to avoid accountability. So that it's always the responsibility is within the capability, appropriate to the circumstances. And we're going to another level where you say, there's an independent and accredited process of doing something. But I wondered whether you'd had a discussion about, the discomfort of people to expose that, the vulnerability, the accountability to independent review not being very excited by that. So it's the counterpoint to what, on the one hand, if you embrace it in a good way, it draws attention and increases enthusiasm. If one allows it to go the other way, people run for cover. So certainly in IUCN, we really do support this because we think it's a great way of mobilizing membership around the world as well as the Commission membership. We're going to be very, very fastidious about the governance of it and make it absolutely clear.
Any comments?
I really think that it is a great opportunity to have the participation of the best people from the Commission, real participation in the country, the high standard in scientific way, or all the other specialties that our specialist group is composed by. So it's a great opportunity for the national parks, for the agency to have their knowledge, their support, but also their criticism. It's very interesting for us, I think, in this better way that we take it, that it's a great opportunity to improve and to also to recognize who are doing the job in the best manner possible, and also to impulse the ones that are not doing so well to follow the successful path of the others that are achieving the goals in terms of management. So I really think that it's very important the support or what we get from the outside and what it promotes inside.
Okay, thanks Julia. So again, just to throw it over, the question we're talking about in terms of involvement for both the greenlists and the CATs. So we put 3 options up there and one that's unsure. So should it be done just by self-assessment, or should it be done only by external assessment, so with nodes of people that come in and look entirely from the outside? The third one, the one we're proposing, the combination, or if people aren't sure. So
Can you define external assessments at non?
so that would be an independent group that came in,
But
and
not WCPA.
could, but not the agency, I think. So yeah, it could be CBA members, but also others external entirely from the agency. So we've got 28, 30 people are responding. Okay, last chance to vote. Polls are closing. Polls are closed. Okay, so that wasn't a Dorothy Dixer at all, was it? Okay, so I don't think we need to spend any more time talking about that one. Okay, then the WWF, the CATS program, has suggested that maybe we could roll this one out about, and I guess what we're talking about here is really looking specifically at the biological and social requirements around a particular species, so that this is a very focused approach to management, maybe to be applied to rhinos or other species that are a focus for management. Obviously, the more species we've got, the more management that we need to run those processes. Okay, 43 votes and closing. Okay, so that's an interesting response. There's some people who are unsure, and maybe I'd be interested in people who are unsure if there's any comments about, why, what's the issue? Is it about the amount of work to do, or is it about the proliferation of different systems?
comments or on that? Or is it because it's, you're not sure if that's going to work on a species level?
Okay, no. Okay, and a similar one, the other thing that the people involved in cats have suggested is the potential to apply it not to species, but to have specific ones around particular ecosystems or regional networks of protected areas like coral reefs or parts of the Congo Basin, where again you would develop a specific set of criteria and standards around the needs of that very local area. He's voting twice, I'll try to. 42. All right, I think we've stabilised at 42. Okay.